Well, well, well. Good morning, lovelies and fine gentlemen. It's your gal pal, Emily, here to sprinkle a little fairy dust on your day with the freshest scoop from the charming universe of Witworks. I hope you're all coasting on the sunny side of the street this fine day. Now, let's dish on the main event, courtesy of those marvelous mavens at Gizmo League. These folks are like the Justice League of tech gadgets and gaming gear. No joke. They're all about serving up the coolest, most futuristic goodies that'll make you feel like you're starring in your own sci-fi epic. And hey, let's give them a big round of applause. They're the reason we're all gathered here today after all. So, hats off to them. And don't forget to swing by www.gizmoleague.com after the show for a full-on geek-out session. Now let's jump right into today's juiciest tale, shall we? Top 10 initially dismissed scientific breakthroughs turned valid. Introduction. In the grand theater of scientific progress, there have been many instances where groundbreaking ideas were met with skepticism, eye rolls, and outright dismissal, only to later be embraced as revolutionary. From theories that seemed too wild to be true to inventions that were initially deemed impractical, the history of science is peppered with stories of perseverance and eventual validation. Let's take a delightful stroll down memory lane and explore the top 10 initially dismissed scientific breakthroughs that ultimately proved their worth. 1. Plate tectonics. Picture this. It's the early 20th century, and the scientific community is bustling with ideas, theories, and a fair amount of skepticism. In walks Alfred Wegener, a bold chap with an idea that's about to shake the very foundations of geology. He's got this wild notion that the Earth's crust is not some static, unchanging landscape, but more like a giant jigsaw puzzle in constant motion. Now, let's be honest, suggesting that continents are casually strolling around the globe like tourists on a sightseeing tour sounds a tad bonkers, doesn't it? Well, that's exactly what Wegener proposed, and let's just say he didn't receive a standing ovation for his troubles. Oh no. Instead, he was met with laughter, eye rolls, and probably a few muttered comments about needing to lay off the strong coffee. But here's the kicker. Despite the initial ridicule, Wegener's theory of plate tectonics turned out to be the geological equivalent of hitting the jackpot. Fast forward a few decades, and scientists started noticing some peculiar things that just didn't quite add up if you stuck to the old, crusty, pun intended, ideas about Earth's structure. Mountains that matched up like pieces of a broken cookie, fossils hanging out in places they had no business being, and earthquakes throwing some serious shade at the notion of a static Earth. All of these clues pointed to one thing. Wegener might have been onto something after all. So, begrudgingly, the scientific community started to take a second look at Wegener's wacky hypothesis. And wouldn't you know it, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. Pun absolutely intended this time. Suddenly, the idea that continents were adrift on the Earth's surface wasn't so laughable anymore. It was downright revolutionary. Sure, it took a while for the skeptics to come around, but eventually they had to concede defeat in the face of mounting evidence. And thus, plate tectonics was born. A shiny new paradigm that transformed the way we understand the very ground beneath our feet. No longer were we shackled to the idea of a static Earth. Instead, we embraced a dynamic, ever-changing planet that's constantly in motion. So the next time you find yourself gazing out at the horizon, just remember, you're not just standing on solid ground, you're riding the ultimate geological roller coaster, courtesy of Mr. Alfred Wegener and his wild imagination. Cheers to that! 2. Germ theory of disease. The germ theory of disease. A tale of invisible invaders that would make even the Brothers Grimm raise an eyebrow. Picture this. Back in the day, when folks got sick, the common belief was more in line with blaming bad luck or perhaps a curse from a disgruntled neighbor than pointing fingers at microscopic critters. It was a time when suggesting that tiny organisms were behind our sniffles and sneezes was about as believable as claiming you saw a unicorn trotting down Main Street. But hold on to your hats, because here come the heroes of our story. Louis Pasteur and Robert Koch, the dynamic duo of microbiology. These guys were like the Sherlock Holmes and Watson of the microscopic world. Except instead of solving crimes, they were cracking the case of why we get sick. With their fancy lab coats and trusty microscopes, they set out to prove that those invisible buggers were indeed real troublemakers. And boy, did they deliver. Through painstaking experiments and a whole lot of squinting through lenses, Pasteur and Koch showed the world that it wasn't just bad juju causing our ailments. It was tiny microbes, invisible to the naked eye, but mighty in their ability to wreak havoc on our health. Suddenly, blaming your cold on your neighbor's evil eye didn't seem so convincing anymore. Imagine the revelation. Those little critters, bacteria, viruses, and the whole microbial menagerie were the culprits behind a whole host of illnesses, from the common cold to the downright nasty stuff. It was like finding out that the monster under your bed was actually just a dust bunny with an attitude problem. So, thanks to Pasteur and Koch, we now know that when it comes to staying healthy, it's not about avoiding black cats or dodging ladders. It's about washing your hands, covering your mouth when you cough, and maybe investing in some hand sanitizer. Who knew that the key to warding off illness was as simple as giving those pesky microbes the old 1-2 punch of soap and water? Next time you feel a sniffle coming on, just remember, it's not a fairy curse or a vengeful spirit. It's just those microscopic mischief makers up to their old tricks. But hey, thanks to science, we've got the knowledge and the tools to send them packing. So, here's to Pasteur, Koch, and all the brave souls who dared to believe in the invisible and conquered the realm of germs. Cheers to germ warfare, one hand wash at a time. 3. The Big Bang Theory. The Big Bang Theory. Nope, not the hilarious sitcom that's probably ingrained in your mind with Sheldon's quirky antics and Penny's eye rolls. We're talking about the real cosmic deal here, the one where the universe didn't just pop into existence because someone said, "Bazinga." Instead, it's this mind-boggling concept that suggests the entire shebang, galaxies and all, started from a single, mind-blowingly colossal explosion. Picture this. Before the Big Bang, there wasn't a cosmic buffet of stars and planets. Nope, it was just a cramped, hot mess of pure energy. Then, kaboom! Everything we know and love today. Galaxies, stars, planets, even Sheldon's collection of comic books sprang into existence. It's like the ultimate fireworks display, but on a universal scale. Now, back in the day, when some brilliant minds first proposed this idea, they were met with a lot of raised eyebrows and skeptical looks. I mean, can you blame people for being a tad doubtful? The concept of everything coming from a single, ginormous explosion sounds more like the plot of a Hollywood blockbuster than a scientific theory. But lo and behold, as scientists dug deeper and telescopes got fancier, the evidence started piling up like dirty laundry in a college dorm room. The more they looked, the more it seemed like the universe indeed had this jaw-dropping origin story. And you know what's even crazier? This theory isn't just some fringe idea that only a handful of scientists whisper about in dimly lit labs. Oh no, it's the real deal, the A-lister of cosmological models. Think about it. Every time you gaze up at the night sky, you're witnessing the aftermath of that epic explosion billions of years ago. Suddenly, stargazing takes on a whole new level of awesomeness, doesn't it? Now, I can't help but wonder if Sheldon and the gang were real and stumbled upon this theory during one of their late-night Thai food binges. Oh boy, the debates they'd have. I can already hear Sheldon's voice rising several octaves as he passionately argues about the implications of a universe born from chaos. And can you imagine Raj's reaction? He'd probably need a stiff drink to process the mind-bending concept. So, here's to the Big Bang Theory, the ultimate cosmic mic drop that continues to blow our minds and expand our understanding of the universe. Who knew a single explosion could be so darn enlightening? 4. Continental drift. All right, buckle up and let's take a ride back in time to when the Earth was having a bit of an identity crisis. Picture this. Alfred Wegener, a guy with a hunch so big it could have sunk the Titanic before it even set sail. He waltzed onto the scene, threw some seismic data on the table, and declared, "Hey, you know those continents? Yeah, They're not just sitting pretty, they're out there doing the cha-cha. Now imagine the collective eye rolls from the scientific community. Continents drifting? Come on, Wegener, that's some wild imagination you got there, they probably said while sipping their tea. But you know what they say about a good theory? It's like a fine wine. It gets better with age. Fast forward a bit, and lo and behold, evidence started stacking up like a game of geological Jenga. Fossil records from different continents started fitting together like puzzle pieces. It's like Mother Nature was playing her own version of Where's Waldo with fossils. And the answer was, oh, just hanging out on opposite sides of the Atlantic. If that doesn't make you raise an eyebrow, I don't know what will. But wait, there's more. Geological formations on continents, separated by oceans, started looking like they were long-lost twins, separated at birth. Mountains on one side of the Atlantic matched up with valleys on the other, like they were exchanging Morse code messages. Suddenly, Wegener wasn't just the crazy guy at the party. He was the guy who brought the snacks and stole the show. Now, I'm not saying the critics were ready to throw him a parade just yet. Oh no, they probably needed a minute to swallow their pride along with their words. But eventually, they had to admit that old Wegener might have been onto something. I mean, when the evidence is staring you in the face like a guilty puppy caught chewing on your favorite slippers, what else can you do but nod in reluctant agreement? So there you have it, folks. Alfred Wegener, the man who dared to dream of continents playing musical chairs across the globe. Turns out he wasn't just talking nonsense. He was laying the groundwork for a whole new way of looking at our planet. And hey, if that doesn't make you appreciate the beauty of scientific discovery, I don't know what will. So here's to you, Wegener, and to all the dreamers out there who dare to rock the boat, or should I say the tectonic plate, in the name of knowledge. Cheers! 5. Helicobacter pylori and peptic ulcers. Ah, the curious case of peptic ulcers. Those pesky belly pains that once had us blaming every spicy taco and stressful day at work. But hold on to your antacids, folks, because here comes the plot twist. Meet Barry Marshall and Robin Warren, the dynamic duo who shook up the medical world faster than you can say heartburn. So picture this. Doctors pointing fingers at spicy tacos and high-stress deadlines, convinced they've cracked the case on peptic ulcers. But then, out of left field, Marshall and Warren stroll in like the heroes of a medical thriller, dropping a bombshell theory. They suggest it's not the tacos or the tension causing the trouble, but rather a sneaky little bacterium called Helicobacter pylori. Cue the dramatic music. Now, you can imagine the scene. Skeptical eyebrows raised, medical minds collectively scratching their heads. But did Marshall and Warren back down? Oh no, they cranked up the crazy and took matters into their own guts, quite literally. Yep, you heard me right. They infected themselves with the very bacteria they were championing as ulcer culprits. Talk about commitment to the cause. I bet their dinner conversations were a real hoot. And guess what? Lo and behold, those brave souls ended up with ulcers of their own. Now, if that isn't the ultimate mic drop moment in the world of science, I don't know what is. Suddenly, every lab coat in the land was singing a different tune, praising Marshall and Warren for their out-of-the-box thinking and stomachs of steel. But let's pause for a moment and appreciate the sheer audacity of their experiment. I mean, most of us wouldn't even dare to eat street food from a dodgy cart, let alone willingly infect ourselves with a potentially ulcer-inducing bacteria. Marshall and Warren weren't just pushing the envelope, they were mailing it express delivery to the scientific community with a big, bold Eureka stamped on it. So, here's to the mavericks of medicine, the renegades of research, Marshall and Warren who dared to challenge the status quo and ended up rewriting the textbooks. Next time you're nursing a bellyache, just remember, it might not be the spicy burrito's fault after all. It could be those cunning little Helicobacter pylori bugs staging a takeover. But hey, at least we know who to thank for cracking the code, right? Cheers to science and to the brave souls who stomach it all in the name of discovery. 6. Quantum mechanics. Ah, buckle up, folks! We're about to take a joyride through the roller coaster of quantum mechanics, where things get so bizarre that even Alice might feel a tad lost in Wonderland. Picture this: particles doing a multitasking marathon, juggling existence in more places than your average multitasker at a coffee shop. And if that doesn't tickle your curiosity, how about the idea of a feline friend who's both curled up in a cozy nap and chasing imaginary mice at the same time? Yep, that's quantum mechanics for you, blurring the line between what's real and what's a head-scratching riddle. Now, imagine being one of those early quantum pioneers trying to sell this wild ride to your skeptical buddies. Hey guys, guess what? There's this theory where tiny things can be everywhere and nowhere all at once. And oh, by the way, Schrodinger's cat can totally be alive and dead at the same time. Cool, right? Yeah, cue the eye rolls and raised eyebrows. It's like trying to pitch a sci-fi flick to a room full of die-hard realists. But hey, credit where it's due. Quantum mechanics didn't just waltz into the scientific spotlight unscathed. Oh no, it had to earn its stripes. Picture a boxing match between Einstein and Bohr, with uncertainty as the referee. There were debates, arguments, and probably a fair amount of head-scratching too. How can something be in two places at once? They cried. That's just not how the universe works. Yet, despite the protest signs and skeptical side eyes, quantum mechanics refused to back down. And then, like a plot twist in a blockbuster movie, along came the experimental evidence, strutting in like the hero to save the day. Suddenly, those skeptics couldn't just brush off quantum mechanics as some wild idea cooked up in a lab late at night. Nope, the evidence was staring them right in the face, like a stubborn cat refusing to pick a side of the door to be on. So there you have it, folks. Quantum mechanics. The theory that dared to be different. The rebel with a cause. Sure, it might bend your brain into pretzel shapes trying to wrap your head around it, but hey, where's the fun in playing it safe all the time? So, next time you catch yourself pondering the mysteries of the universe, just remember, quantum mechanics is like the quirky cousin at the family reunion, weird, wonderful, and always keeping you on your toes. 7. Hand washing in medicine. Picture this: a bustling maternity ward in the 19th century, where doctors are swanning about in their fancy coats, ready to deliver bundles of joy into the world. But here's the twist. They're also unwittingly delivering something else: germs. Yep, you heard that right. Back in the day, the concept of scrubbing up before surgery was about as popular as a root canal without anesthesia. Enter Ignaz Semmelweis, the unsung hero of hygiene. Now, Ignaz wasn't your average Joe. He had a hunch, a gut feeling that maybe, just maybe, those nasty little critters on our hands were causing more harm than good in the maternity ward. Imagine suggesting this in a room full of esteemed doctors. Talk about being greeted with laughter louder than a bad sitcom. But Ignaz was undeterred. He rolled up his sleeves, hopefully after washing his hands, and dove headfirst into his mission, convincing the medical world that cleanliness wasn't just next to godliness, but next to life-saving. So, what did our hygiene pioneer propose? It wasn't rocket science, folks. It was good old soap and water. Yep, that's right, the same stuff your grandma swears by. But back then, it was as revolutionary as the latest iPhone. Ignaz preached the gospel of hand-washing like a modern-day evangelist, albeit with less fire and brimstone and more soap suds and scrubbing. Sure, his colleagues probably thought he'd lost his marbles, but Ignaz knew he was onto something big, something that could change the game in the battle against disease. And boy, did it ever! Slowly but surely, doctors started to see the light and the importance of lathering up. As they traded in their grime-covered hands for squeaky clean ones, something miraculous happened. Mortality rates plummeted faster than a lead balloon. Suddenly, hand-washing wasn't just for the faint-hearted. It was a badge of honor, a symbol of a job well done. Ignaz had single-handedly, pun intended, revolutionized medicine, all thanks to a little soap and water. So, the next time you're scrubbing up before dinner or reaching for that bottle of hand sanitizer, take a moment to thank good old Ignaz. After all, He's the reason we're not all keeling over from preventable diseases left and right. And who knows? Maybe one day someone will write a quirky paragraph about you and your groundbreaking discovery too. But until then, keep washing those hands like your life depends on it because, well, it kinda does. 8. Electricity. All right, let's take a trip back in time, way before our smartphones were practically glued to our hands and before Netflix was even a distant dream. Picture this, a world without electricity. Yeah, seems like something out of a dystopian novel, doesn't it? But believe it or not, there was a time when flipping a switch to illuminate a room was about as likely as finding a unicorn in your backyard. So rewind to the days of yore, when folks were still wrapping their heads around the idea of harnessing this invisible force we call electricity. It's like they were trying to tame a wild beast they couldn't even see. Cue Benjamin Franklin, the man with the kite and the key. Now, imagine being in his shoes, flying a kite in a thunderstorm, hoping not to get fried to a crisp. Talk about dedication to science, right? But hey, his little experiment gave us a shocking revelation. Lightning is basically electricity showing off its flashy moves. Then, fast forward to Thomas Edison, the Wizard of Menlo Park. This guy had a light bulb moment that literally lit up the world. Edison wasn't just an inventor, he was a master of hype. Picture him in his workshop, surrounded by a bunch of skeptical onlookers, probably scratching their heads and wondering if old Tommy had finally lost it. But lo and behold, he flicks a switch, and boom, there's light. Edison must have felt like he won the lottery that day. And let's be real, he kinda did. He turned darkness into dollars, one filament at a time. But let's not forget the drama that came with this electrifying journey. Skepticism and disbelief were like the annoying sidekicks in this epic quest for power. You had folks shaking their heads, muttering about witchcraft and sorcery every time someone mentioned harnessing electricity. Can't blame 'em, though. If I told you I could summon lightning with a key and a kite, you'd probably think I've been hitting the history books a little too hard, right? So, here we are, living in a world where electricity is as common as sliced bread. We've come a long way from flying kites in thunderstorms and hoping for the best. But hey, let's give props to those pioneers who dared to dream of a world illuminated by more than just candlelight. Thanks to them, we can charge our phones, binge watch our favorite shows, and maybe even summon a little magic of our own with the flip of a switch. Ain't electricity grand? 9. The theory of evolution. Picture this. It's the 19th century, and Charles Darwin is stirring up quite the storm. He's not a tornado chaser or a mischief maker. He's just a chap with a beard and a knack for shaking things up. Enter stage left, the theory of evolution. Now, Darwin didn't just throw this theory out there like a wet noodle hoping it would stick to the wall. Oh no, he served it up with a side of controversy that would make even the Kardashians blush. So, what's all the fuss about? Well, Darwin had this crazy idea that humans weren't plucked straight from the Garden of Eden, but rather, we had a few more distant relatives hanging around in the family tree. And not just any relatives, mind you. Darwin had the audacity to suggest that our great-great-great-grandpappy might have been swinging from the trees, picking fleas out of his fur. Cue the gasps from the scientific community and the raised eyebrows from the religious folks. Now, imagine being in Darwin's shoes. You're just trying to share your brilliant insights with the world. And what do you get? A whole lot of side-eye and a chorus of, "Say what now?" from the peanut gallery. But Darwin wasn't about to let a little skepticism reign on his parade. He rolled up his sleeves, grabbed his magnifying glass, and went on a scientific scavenger hunt to gather evidence faster than a squirrel hoarding acorns for winter. And wouldn't you know it, he hit the jackpot. Fossils, DNA, anatomical similarities, you name it, Darwin found it, all pointing to one undeniable truth. Evolution is as real as a bad haircut in middle school. Sure, there were still a few stragglers clinging to their creationist life rafts, but the overwhelming evidence in favor of evolution was about as subtle as a herd of elephants tap dancing in your living room. So, what's the moral of the story? Well, for starters, never underestimate the power of a good beard and a brain full of revolutionary ideas. But more importantly, Darwin taught us that it's okay to question the status quo, even if it means ruffling a few feathers along the way. After all, who wants to live in a world where we're not allowed to evolve? Not this guy, that's for sure. So here's to you, Charles Darwin, for rocking the boat and reminding us that sometimes the most radical ideas are the ones worth fighting for. Cheers to evolution, folks. It's the survival of the wittiest. 10. The Higgs boson. All right, buckle up and prepare for a journey into the depths of particle physics, where the drama rivals any soap opera. We're diving into the wild world of the Higgs boson, affectionately dubbed the God particle. Now, this particle isn't just elusive. It's the ninja of the subatomic realm, dodging detection for decades. Picture physicists as detectives in a cosmic CSI episode, searching high and low, sifting through the subatomic sands for this tiny troublemaker. But, oh, the skepticism. Doubters lined up like impatient commuters on a Monday morning, questioning if this particle was just a figment of some over-caffeinated physicist's imagination. "Where's your evidence?" they'd ask, wagging their scientific fingers. It was like trying to convince a cat that water is fun, uphill battle, to say the least. Then, cue the hero music. Enter the Large Hadron Collider, the Beyoncé of particle accelerators, ready to drop some scientific truth bombs. In 2012, after enough particle smashing to make a cosmic smoothie, scientists finally caught a glimpse of the elusive Higgs boson, chilling out in the wreckage like a subatomic superhero after a hard day's work. It was a mic drop moment for physics. A big, fat, "I told you so" to all the naysayers. And what's the fuss about this little guy? Well, turns out the Higgs boson is the VIP of the particle world, the puppet master pulling the strings en masse. Without it, particles would be flitting around like weightless butterflies at a rave. So, thank you, Higgs boson, for bringing order to the subatomic chaos and giving the universe a bit of substance. But let's not forget our skeptics, those brave souls who doubted, questioned, and probably lost a few nights of sleep over this whole Higgs boson debacle. To them, we say, hey, it's cool. Science is all about asking questions and poking things with sticks until they make sense. And boy, did the Higgs boson make sense, like finding the missing puzzle piece under the sofa cushions. So, here's to you, Higgs boson, the little particle that could. And here's to science, where even the smallest discoveries can make the biggest waves. Who knows what other secrets the universe is hiding, just waiting for us to uncover? It's a wild ride, folks, so hold on to your particle accelerators and keep your skepticism in check. After all, you never know when the next God particle might come knocking. Conclusion. The history of science is rife with examples of ideas that were initially dismissed as crazy or impractical, only to be vindicated by evidence and further study. So, the next time someone scoffs at a wild scientific theory, just remember, stranger things have happened in the world of science. Well, my lovely listeners, it seems our little escapade has come to an end for today. Here at Whitwork Studios, we absolutely thrive on the warmth and brilliance of sharp individuals like yourselves. If you're craving the full VIP treatment, longing for endless access to our freshest podcasts, and feeling the urge to champion our artistic endeavors, why not mosey on over to our exclusive subscribers club? Darling, you've got the brains, no need for a map to find your way. But before you set off on your quest to conquer the world, armed with newfound wisdom, I simply must send a heartfelt shout-out to our dear friends over at Gizmo League. Truly, these delightful souls are the unsung heroes, making this podcast a reality and delivering the wonders of tech right to your eager ears. So, if you're itching for a taste of gadget goodness, hop on over to www.gizmoleague.com and see what they've got cooking. Until we cross paths again, keep that curiosity burning bright and continue to dazzle the world with your magnificence. Until next time, my darlings.